As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries. When you hear the DJ scratch, that means we're live. Welcome to another episode of Burn and Return. For those of you that are tuning in for the first time, my name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor. And alongside me, I have two fine gentlemen known as Ray Ito and Ryan DeMay. Gentlemen, how the hell are y'all? Oh, and real quick, let's give a big round of applause because finally, we do not have to worry about me doing the bullshit that I do handling the tech side of things.
Time's up. It's over.
Wonderful. Our producer is back.
It's literally like we've gone from the MS-DOS version of Oregon Trail all the way into the Windows 3.1 version. And God almighty, is it great, right? Because there was a while there, Matt, that our fucking oxen died and we were out of ammo.
I know, but you know what? The listeria will get you every time, whether you intend to or not. And
dysentery.
Bacterial infection is difficult. Well, dysentery. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That we should put that actually put that on the
yeah.
You said
listeria. Confusing that with Listerine.
It's a bacteria like in dairy products. Stuff like that. Listen, diseases. We've got to put that on the decathlon. So that'll be part of our. We got to make sure we make a list of this. There's at least 10 events there. So. If you're tuning in and you're wondering what we're talking about, in the pre-show, we decided that because we're celebrating Ray and his love of death and our, him helping us embrace it, not be afraid of it anymore. And the way that we do that is by talking about it on pretty much every show. It's been a running theme now.
Mori.
This is our 60th. This is our 60th show now, gentlemen, on Burn and Return alone.
Hot damn.
And to celebrate that, we're going to do, we'll have a little bit of a discussion about interesting ways to die during our pre-show. And if you want to access that, you can always check us out, www.patreon.com/burn and return. Low price, $4, $10. And I think it goes all the way up to $20. We don't need to grovel. There's 120 of you, and we love you all. And we certainly like to have you on the show, participating with us on the Death Decathlon with the Green Duck.
And you know what? You know what we're gonna do? We for every dollar we generate through Patreon, we are going to live the most lavish lifestyle you have ever seen. We're gonna drink Cristal and Remy Martin and the Playboy cognac and whiskey because we can, because we are getting filthy rich off this. And if you weren't here to get hucked out of your next $4, then we would just move on to the next thing with our life because we sure as shit. All right, I'm playing into it.
Actually, no, that's the name of the name of our yacht, Poseidon's Trident.
It is, and it as of right now, we got it out of a Hot Wheels box. But you know what? We love it nonetheless. And what we would prefer you to do, we would prefer you to go to wecarelawn.care.info, and in lieu of sending us more Hot Wheels, which is much appreciative. Don't get me wrong, it's fun. It makes for great fodder, great content, great laughs, but. Take that extra 99 cents and chip it in over here at the Travis Feltner Fund by the boys here at the Grass Factor, and send it to people that actually could put this to good use. That is St. Jude. WeCareLawnCare.info. Make a fucking difference, will you? Please. Okay.
Stop
Ray,
complaining.
Thank you for bringing us the Death Decathlon. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No,
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a fun exercise. Be a fun exercise, and I really am equal parts anxious and equal parts scared as to what rabbit holes on Wikipedia Ray's going to send me down of stuff that I don't even know about. But I'm here for
Ray,
it. I'm going to lean into it.
Do not provide any details. No details whatsoever. But if you had to name one thing, death-wise, that is your favorite, just give it in name only, and then we're going to save the rest of that. But just in name, if you have one that is, whether it's the most interesting, however you would like to classify it, what is the name of one thing that you would say?
The world's most radioactive man.
There we go. And that is all you need to know. And
I'll follow that up. And I didn't know about this. I think Jay Pink was the one who told me about this. I think.
I have no idea what it is.
It's been some time. To me, without question, the weirdest way, or what I'm not even going to clarify it. You're right. Mr. Hands.
Oh,
I said it.
Buddy.
Said what I said.
Damn it, man.
Said what I said.
Yes.
Okay, leave it to the librarian to find the most racy way to go. Okay, leave it to the librarian. I mean, that is the most racy way to go.
It is unbelievable. I don't have anything off the top of my head right now, just because I'm not quite in the state of mind to be able to just recall. And I would say probably the one that would pop into my head is Mr. Hands, but geez, man, you put my brain into a space that
getting you ready to do headlines.
Some people are a little nervous to go, but you know what? I'll go there with you, DeMay. I'll go there with you. You know where else I will go?
The headlines. And if you're going to look that up, by the way, incognito tab.
Yes.
Pro tip.
Do not image search that. This week's headlines.
Nothing to fear here. This is just the news.
This is just the news indeed. And number one is coming at us from Lawn and Landscape Magazine. Our dear friends over there, Becky Boland, David Urban, and Jay McCurdy bring us this fine article here. And it is called Reverse Resistance. In recent years, herbicide resistance among POA annual populations and turfgrass systems has increased. Among the most challenging weeds for turfgrass professionals to control is Poa annua, or annual bluegrass. Although sometimes grown as a desired species, Poa is frequently classified as one of the most common and troublesome weeds in managed turfgrass systems due to its adaptability, invasive biology, and propensity towards herbicide resistance. It competes with desired species, disrupts aesthetics and functionality, may increase maintenance costs. Herbicide resistance is generally defined as inherited ability of a plant to survive an herbicide application that would typically kill a normal population of the same species. Resistant plants are selected through repeated use of herbicides at the same site of action. As the surviving plants reproduce within a population, resistance within a population increases. And so here we are. Resist POA began in fall of 2018. An interdisciplinary team of scientists spanning 14 academic institutions came together across the herbicide resistance epidemic to address the herbicide resistance epidemic in POA annua and managed turfgrass systems. The project was funded by the USDA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture, as a specialty crops research initiative. Over the past 4 years, the project has accomplished many of its objectives to advance knowledge around the nature, extent, and management of herbicide resistance in this troublesome weed. Contemporary challenges and opportunities for improved lawn weed management. Insights from U.S. lawn care operators as part of the Resist POA effort. A series of 5 virtual focus groups was conducted in 2021 to gather perspectives from LCOs across the United States. They were trying to figure out, basically, what the hell is going on. The complete study published in Outlooks on Pest Management can be accessed for free on the Resist POA website by searching available literature under resources. So there you go. If you would like to follow up on this in your own time, by all means, you certainly can. And here are some the top concerns that we see here. Many participants suspect that herbicide resistance is a challenge in lawns and landscapes they manage, particularly by troublesome grassy weeds. POA in particular is uniquely challenging due to growing herbicide resistance issues. There's a perception that government pesticide regulations make it challenging to manage turfgrass weeds properly. This is compounded by a feeling that there are too few herbicide options available to manage weeds in turfgrass lawns. Many participants indicated that opportunities for information sharing between operators are too limited in the lawn and landscape industry. And some participants also felt that opportunities for misinformation among the public may generate unfounded concerns about fertilizer and pesticide use, leading to fear among clientele that can impact the ability to implement best practices. So anyway, it goes on into some things here and some forward-looking opportunities. And I don't think that this most certainly isn't news to anyone, but again, highlighting here one of the things that is currently going on, and now we have a published study that is coming directly from lawn care operators. Resist POA is taking one for the team and doing the work for us. And if you haven't checked it out, you can go to resistpoa.org, and there's going to be a lot of information there for you to take a look at, including the literature that went into putting this together. So kudos to them for being able to bring this to us. In a couple things, obviously I think the clickbaity thing in here that I'm curious as to y'all's take on it. Some of this I agree with, some of this I don't agree with. Number one is there is a perception that governmental pesticide regulations make it challenging to manage turfgrass weeds properly. I'll say that as number one. Number two, this is compounded by a feeling that there are too few herbicide options available to manage weeds in turfgrass lawns. And then number three, I'll highlight this, that some participants also felt opportunities for misinformation among the public may generate unfounded concerns about fertilizer and pesticide use, leading to fear among clientele that can impact the ability to implement best practices. Okay, got all that out. Now, gentlemen, I bring this up to you because, again, clickbaity. Of these three, and then please comment anything that you want to say about this, which of these three do you think are true? Which of the three do you think are false?
Ooh,
and this is purely
it's like
opinion.
Two truths and a lie.
Yeah, which is actually what I was going to that's identical to what I was going to say. I was going to say I see two truths and a lie, but I'll let y'all give yours.
Okay, so a couple of things. J Pink, first, go ahead and throw this up. This is from the resistpoa.org website. So most of what they're seeing in terms of resistant populations occur in the southeastern United States. So particularly Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, in which 13% of the 776 samples they got were suspected resistant to ALS inhibiting herbicides, 8% to glyphosate, 5% simazine, applied as a post-emergent. And I think they mean prodiamine. They've misspelled it here. Or is that something I'm missing here? Prana.
No, I think it is pronamide.
Pronamide is actually used quite a bit on golf courses and I believe sports fields, right? And sod farms. Curb.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
Curb.
You don't see that in lawn care. No one is using curb.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's why I thought, you
can't use it in lawn care because pronamide is prohibited in residential areas. It's a suspect carcinogen.
So here's the point. I think, Matt, it's a great question when you talk about what is out there. The biggest thing that I think is truth is that by bringing to light what we do to control weeds, particularly in warm season turf in the southeastern states, that it could become problematic in terms of what if we bring to light, hey, it's tough to control weeds, we might have to spray this thing or that thing. Just the idea that you're bringing to light that, hey, you spray weeds in the wintertime, what the hell are you, like, that sort of thing. That maybe other people don't know. So there is that whole thing of like, hey, keep the curtain pulled. Don't show anybody, whether it's tricks or whether it is just the exposure to risk that might be highlighted. So I do agree with that to a certain extent. I think what's maybe a little less of a concern for me, or more of a lie, would be just the products that we do have available in lawn care for volunteer POA control in a warm season lawn in particular. Now they go on and they look at this too in other northern states, right? So I think there's a test site at Purdue I know there's one at Penn State, and I think that's where it'll be interesting to see what comes of those northern sites. But this is a $5.6 million grant from the USDA, right? That was given to these researchers.
Huge,
massive, like
huge.
One of the biggest grants that's been given to turfgrass ever, right? By the USDA, and it's a long-term study. So they're going to run out of money at some point here, and I think the next like 2-3 years, something like that. They'll probably reapply and do a second phase of this. So it'll be interesting to see what they come back. But Ray, I'm interested to hear from your perspective. You know, the idea that resistance is a problem. I would agree that it's a problem, and I think that's why we put this article here, was to show, you know, people that weren't aware of this maybe, that there are problems out there, and you need to be mindful of it. And both you and Matt have talked ad nauseum about you know, rotating herbicides and being mindful of that. So unless you're going to go out there and hose and spray a gate, and sarcasm, by the way, what can you do?
Funny.
Let's hear it.
Hardy har. Yeah, you know, this also highlights where I think as an industry, we too are our own worst enemy. Because, for example, how many lawn care operators use the same product over and over and over again, year after year after year, without any thought to, hey, I used this last year, maybe I shouldn't put it down this year, maybe I need to change it up and do something different. And, you know, in talking to people in the business myself, you know what, one of the most horrific things I've heard is, I heard somebody literally tell me, I don't want to rotate my product because that stuff that I bought costed several $100s per bottle, and I'll be damned if I'm going to inventory, you know, another product on top of this already expensive product that I have. So I told this guy, so what are you going to do? Are you going to therefore ride this thing to the end, and then you have resistant pests, and then what you going to do? You know,
and I think that's where they're trying to get ahead of this. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, from the true or false perspective of those three, which do you think are true and which do you think are false?
I think the lack of available options for, you know, products, especially when we're talking about warm season turf growing in the transition zone, I call false on that. I mean, that is not true, because, you know, Matt, in this age, I mean, we have got so many things available to us, because, like I told you, you know, when I started doing, you know, working in the industry, all I had available to me was 3-way, MSMA, simazine or atrazine, and maybe a little bit later imazaquin or image. I did not have the availability of so many different kinds of pre-emergence, and so, and I also did not have, you know, and Matt, I came into the industry at a time when there were no sulfonylurea herbicides labeled for use on ornamental turf grass. I'm showing my age again.
So, and this is where I'm gonna point out that we probably all three have different opinions here. So, I oftentimes feel that we have too few herbicide options, and I'm not going necessarily by active ingredients, but where I am leaning on that is mode of actions, and I do agree that public agitation towards concerns related to use of fertilizer and pesticides is creating a problem. especially when it comes to being able to make the most appropriate decisions while out in the field, especially the safest decisions. I think that is true. I would say, as of right now, government pesticide regulations are not making it challenging to manage turfgrass weeds. Now, I would say that that's also probably highly regional. So if you're in, Maryland, in the dead zone, then yeah, it's probably a major problem for you there. However, at least where I am, it is not a problem, and I have no regulations. And anything that limits my availability of products to be able to make a weed control application would be a product that I probably shouldn't be using anyway. So I think there's some highly regionality that goes on with that. But my take on that would be false. I don't think the government is creating a challenge right now, at least for me. I do say true that we are limited in our modes of actions, and true that a public outcry is becoming a difficult thing to manage. So we'll kind of leave it at that. We're running. DeMay, do you have anything else? We're running a little long on time, so I was gonna move on here.
Nope, go on.
Okay. Number 2 here, the Denver Broncos spent $40? No. $4,000? No. $40,000? No. $400,000. Because the Walton Penner family ownership group purchased the Denver Broncos in August, they felt the grass was showing signs of wear and tear. And the CEO and owner, Greg Penner, made the call to have brand new grass installed ahead of the final game of the season. And I love to hear this, Ray. This is my favorite line of the whole thing. After our last home game and following a perfect storm of significant activity combined with inclement weather, the field was simply not up to our standards. Our turf crew and stadium management had a window to install it, and we took advantage of it. And I think there should be even greater emphasis on the turf guys that made that a reality, because Lord have mercy, could you imagine what that was like? Now, I have never done anything at this scale, this kind of capacity. DeMay, I'm sure you have seen some silly shit in this type of vein. Talk to me about what happens when you have to get a field in at this scale, at this magnitude, at that kind of timeline.
Yeah, I was going to say the timeline is probably the trickiest part, because you got to have weather to harvest, logistics to move the sod in fast enough but not too fast, and then you got to get it all installed, got to get it ready to go, rolled out, prepped, painted, and play the first game. What's interesting, and I think part of this was a little bit of an experiment, gentlemen, because they switched their Kentucky bluegrass.
Time's up, it's over.
See, time's up, it's over for Kentucky bluegrass. Over to Tahoma 31 Bermuda grass for that last game.
Yes,
so I think
yes.
they're doing a little FAFO out there in Denver right now. They saw how well it went for the Chicago Bears playing on Bermuda in a cooler climate, and it's not to say that Denver's as cold as Chicago, but yeah, they've actually got a sod farm out there, Ray, Green Valley Turf, that grows Tahoma right there in central Colorado. So yeah, it was an easy lift for them to get that over there. And yeah, when you're owned by the son-in-law of the heir, and I'm not sure exactly what her title is with Walmart, but you marry a Walton, Matt, things tend to work out in your favor. I'm just going to say that,
Well, and it is quite the undertaking. We should get Spin on again to break down the high pace, high chaotic turmoil that goes into that. And you say that maybe they saw what went on with Chicago and all that, but I think they were scoping our friend up in Columbus, Ohio, who has been playing around with these sprigging installs, and they weren't. Did you hear what I said? Did you hear what I said?
Oh, I heard.
I don't need time. I don't have time for you to sell yourself fucking short, DeMay. Do you hear me?
Hey, listen.
I know they were
I did not do that. I did not drop him.
Look at him.
I got
He's back.
out.
I didn't do it.
He's back.
Yeah,
I actually was slamming my mouse on the desk, and I accidentally hit the back button with my thumb. Sorry about
Listen,
that.
maybe they did, and I'll tell you what, that I will say this: if you have a football field, most anywhere in North America, I'll say most anywhere in North America, you'd be an idiot to not use it. I'm just saying, like it's.
I'll go with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, you might have some loss. Yeah, you might have to resprig some stuff, but you have a window, you have time, and it should be it's a viable option wherever you go. And mow it, water it,
Ryan,
fertilize it. Everything will take care of itself.
It makes sense. You know, it makes sense because here's my thought on it. Let the grass grow like heck all summer long, and then it's going to be ready for fall football season. So it makes logical sense to me. Okay?
No.
It does. I mean, it's not out of, my mind of reasoning where I can imagine it working. You know, I truly can.
This is
rather than
what?
Everybody came in at the same time. What were you going to say? Rather than what, DeMay? I mean,
no,
Ray.
I was going to say from my backyard to Ray's backyard. I didn't know if we were transitioning to the next article because we are moving right on to literally Ray's backyard.
Oh
Ray.
God, are you gonna trigger me or horrify me because I
sincerely want to get your opinion on this approach.
Yeah, because I read this in the paper a few days ago, and I thought, these motherfucking clowns.
I pictured Ray reading this, and I'll paint my picture here in a minute. Go ahead and read the article, Matt.
The Honolulu Department of Parks and Recreation is proposing an annual maintenance program to raise the quality of outdoor amenities, like, for instance, their baseball fields. In the case of Patsy T. Mink Central Ohio Regional Park, the fields get worn down quickly. Oahu Park users are invited to take part in a community survey to gauge public sentiment regarding a robust baseball softball field maintenance program designed to improve the conditions of a 12 diamond-shaped fields at the park. Currently, the high use of these dozen ball diamonds, which includes 3 clusters of 4 ball fields for adult baseball, softball, and youth baseball, has outpaced the existing maintenance program, as they are used year-round and are not given time to rest or rehabilitate. In most other municipalities, off-season weather enables park staff to reset their fields from regular wear and tear of recreational use on an annual basis. The Honolulu Department of Parks and Recs is proposing an annual maintenance program to raise the quality of these outdoor amenities. The proposed plan calls for a 3-month summertime closure of 2 ball fields from June through August. Talk to me, Ray. What do you think of? Is that what needs to happen? Is a shutdown the only executable answer at this point?
Given how the city handles maintenance, I think it's actually needed, because let me paint you all a picture of the actual condition of these turfgrass areas.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me paint the picture. All of these turfgrass areas are currently invaded by a combination of blue stem, goosegrass, and smut grass, and they're supposed to be Bermuda.
Yeah,
that is the actual issue.
So here's my question: is how did it get to that point? And I'll
tell you why.
Is a one-time closure? I mean, I could see a one-time closure, but ongoing?
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you why. It's because, to my knowledge, routine weed control is not done on any city and county of Honolulu turfgrass area. It is not done at all.
Cost-wise,
and so
what's the hang up there?
Politics-wise, it's all political.
Need the
it's all political, because you see, how is it handled in any other municipality? Like we have Lushy, who used to work for the city of Attleboro, maintaining their recreational areas, right? And Lushy would be out there doing pre and post emergent weed control on a routine basis when it's supposed to be done. Whereas here in Honolulu, Hawaii, the only way for that to happen is in order for that to happen in Honolulu, an area would literally need to be completely shut down, closed off, and secured.
Yeah,
that's the only way
that's the part that doesn't square with me of like why they don't take this approach of like, hey, let's get it fixed back up, and they're just sort of like putting a Band-Aid on it over a shotgun wound, as if it's as bad as you say it is, and I have no reason to believe otherwise. Then address the issue, right? Go in there and fix it. You know, sod sprig, do whatever we got to do. And they say that
actually, what needs to happen is, even if it gets fixed, Ryan, the same old shit grows in those areas without an adequate weed control program.
And that was my next part, is that you gotta have that on the backside. That's all, because it's all maintenance, right?
Because you know what, Ryan? Ever since I've been the Green Doctor of Hawaii, I've had conversations with people within the Parks Department, and they've showed me some of the things that come up in the turfgrass areas, and I told them, you know what? You get out your boom sprayer. Here's what you load into it, and you drop that. And they tell me, oh my God, Ray, we can't do that. We cannot do that. And I'm like, why the hell not? It's because we cannot shut down the areas that you're telling us to do this to. Okay? I mean, that's the issue here. And so, for example, Ryan, in several of the city parks that are not necessarily baseball fields, they have an issue with this weed called kakiweed. It is related to pigweed, except this weed is medieval. What it has is it has these little seed heads that look like mace balls. And the thorns drive into the feet of dogs or people. And do you know how you fix kakiweed?
Please tell me.
You put down a combination of metsulfuron methyl and speed zone. And you fry that shit.
Well,
and it's gone.
Ray, it sounds like we're gonna have to take your bedside manner down to City Hall. That's all we can hope for. I think.
Oh, they've heard from me.
Oh,
they've heard from me, and it's like, no, they just have this attitude of can't-doism, and the only thing that's going to come out of this survey that they're taking is more of my tax dollars wasted, because this is all another Buddhist ritual of getting public input and not doing a fucking thing.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our public access channel for Honolulu local television tonight.
Next week
for coming.
Walter Cronkite is going to be talking to us about.
We're going to revive him from the dead to talk about volcanoes in Hawaii. Christ.
Boys, let's just go ahead while we're on 9.7. Let's go ahead and do Joe Knows Dwarf.
Joe
Knows Turf.
Indeed, he does.
Hi, I'm
Joe.
I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today. Because Joe knows turf.
Yes, indeed, he does. And you know what, DeMay? I want to know what you have in store for us, good sir.
Well, listen, I'm not going to say this is intervention for Joe, but we want to make him feel welcome, make him feel at home. This is his place. This is his segment, and always will be, no matter what he says or does. And Jay Pink, go ahead and roll our intro video for tonight, our little cut.
Master! If you tell anyone about this, I'll fucking kill you. I'm kidding. We'll come back by tonight. Okay.
All right, now there you go. So listen, this is us kidnapping Joe and bringing him back to the land of science and reason. Ray and Matt. Ray, hey, Joe, listen, it's going to be a good year. You know what? Lean into it all the way, brother, all the way. Now tonight, I'd like to talk to you. This article popped up, and there's been a lot of this. I think we've talked before about sort of the seminal work in this vein here. And JP, go ahead and throw the article up, and we'll talk a little bit about this on the subject of biostimulants. Now, this is the effects of plant biostimulants on cool season turfgrass seedlings. Now, this is an interesting study on seedlings that had not been previously done. And they're looking at perennial ryegrass and creeping bentgrass here. Actually, a little bit of work here out of The Ohio State University. And I did not get to see this and get up close to it while it was being conducted here, but I do have good relationships with these researchers. I'm going to talk to them a little bit here. So the article starts off, a plant biostimulant is a natural substance or microorganism applied to plants or soil to enhance growth and stress tolerance. These complexes include different types of elements, have different types of effects. Therefore, the specific modes of action through which they perform are mostly unknown. Considering that the worldwide market for plant biostimulants was valued at $3.68 billion in 2022, the amount of commercial availability in these products and their use is increasing globally. It's necessary to generate more technical information regarding their effect and the most important turfgrass species used around the world. So, gentlemen, if we slide down here, this study, we were interested in determining if plant biostimulants could, slide back up just a bit there, J Pink. I'm going to read this for the group here. Yep. Could be used for increased seedling leaf and root production during establishment. Previous field studies with biostimulants in the frequently cut turfgrass, data not published in Ohio, did not show differences between the products. Therefore, a controlled environment study was conducted to eliminate variability often encountered in field studies. The objective of this study was to determine the effect of 6 commercial plant biostimulants on root and leaf growth in germinating seedlings of 3 cool season turfgrass species in a controlled environment. All right, so here's what they're doing, ladies and gentlemen, is they tried to do this in the field, and they saw nothing different between the 6 different products that they looked at. Okay?
Ooh, shit.
Yeah, that's a big shit, because in research,
Yikes.
right, we want to either prove or disprove something, right? That's the whole point of why we do it. You know, that's science. And so they said, well, okay, there could be some different variables that we're not accounting for out here. We're not sure what is causing this, if there's anything, and we'd like to take this into a controlled environment. So they'll take these into a growth chamber that exists inside. Ray, real quick, just explain the growth chamber, how it's set up, what they can do with it, the extremes they can put turfgrass through in those types of settings.
The growth chamber, also known as the torture chamber, because in a growth chamber,
That's why I asked you, Ray.
Control over temperature, light levels, and humidity. So, and you also have control over water. So therefore, if you want to subject the creeping bentgrass seedlings to 90 degrees heat and 90 degrees humidity and intense light levels, yes, you can. Conversely, now, on my end, if you want to take Bermuda grass down to 50 degrees and low light levels, you can do that too. So a growth chamber is actually, I consider that the litmus test for whether a product is capable of mitigating environmentally stressful conditions. Because, okay, you treat your sample with your snake oil, and then you stick it in that growth chamber, and then you crank up the heat, or else you turn on the AC, and then you see what happens. So there, I mean.
Now, so what was interesting here in looking at the products that they were using? So I'll do a quick description of what was used. So 6 were Nutex EDA, which is a product from Sipcam Agro. That's a 5%.
These are all Sipcam products, by the way. I'm just gonna throw that.
Yeah, except for the last one is Nature's Wonders. I'm not even sure I know I've seen that one before, the Apex 10, but yeah, all SIP
Oh,
chem
yeah.
products.
Apex 10. Yeah.
So they're 5% zinc. We've got classified as a metabolic enhancer. Baccarat, a concentrated humic substance and complex organic
humic
material.
substance, by the way. Acidic humic substance. Yeah, it's one of the more interesting ones I've seen. It's almost like an interesting, very non-viscous, very well done suspension.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've got.
In fact, I've got a jar of it on the table behind me here.
Oh, how about that? Potente, I think.
Mm-hmm.
An amino acid biostimulant. Stillo, also SIP-Chem Agro. Mixture of fulvic acid and vitamins, and then Apex 10, which is a liquid peat extract. So it's kind of like humic acid, but it's made from a peat substance, right?
Yes, it is. It is humic acid that's derived from peat bogs.
Mm-hmm. So all good claims, and I think some of these have claims about seedling production, everything like that. So going down here, the interesting part here is we look at the data, right, in the tables, is that there is some positive effect here from some of these humic substances in particular. The Baccarat is actually noticeably better in some of these cases here, related to fresh mass and then also dry mass as well. So, gentlemen, as we go down here and look, we talk about a little bit of how they went through and did this. So the 3 turf species were seeded in randomly assigned rows, 4 holes each. The floating trays were placed on top of a rectangular container, blah, blah, blah. So these are 15 days after seedling, the 6 liquid biostimulants were applied into the containers and left there. So again, they basically did one application right after seeding, and some of the pictures are pretty interesting as we look at this. So their takeaway on this whole thing is that the positive effect on plant performance by these humic substances and there was positive effect from humic substances and complex organic materials. So particularly the Baccarat product, right? The dose may be important to factor in because low doses used in this study, 1 to 2 parts per million, were compared to former studies. So they just kind of used some rates that they had seen in other papers and didn't really have a baseline that they wanted to go off of to kind of compare results from previous work. So that all being said, this was, I think sponsored in some way, shape, or form, whether it was money or product, by SIP-Chem Agro, which is fine. I mean, that's how a lot of these trials will end up working, right? Soft money that comes into university research that keeps the program doors open. And, I guess my question to you, gentlemen, is, there has been
some opinions.
I bet you do. There has been some smoke around, in research works over time regarding humic as a germination aid, as a establishment aid, and that sort of thing. And, what do you think that we're seeing here? And the one thing that I thought was interesting too, I'll just add this, is was it Josh Weaver? Who was the guy down at Clemson, Matt, that did the
Dr. Weaver
so Josh's paper, so Dr. Weaver did that. And I thought it was interesting that they called into question about the rates and the timing, because I think what Dr. Weaver had was like, it was a ridiculously high rate. I want to say it was 2+ gallons per 2+ gallons per acre on a rate, like a 5-day interval or something like that. I mean, it's crazy high that you would have to do to keep those levels up. And that was Zoysia establishment for putting green height. Anyway, I've rambled enough. Tell us about the science here, gentlemen. What are we missing?
One thing I want to put out here is that as far as creating a baseline of fertility, because in effect, this is a hydroponic study, right? So this is hydroponically grown grass that we're seeing here. And in the event you use just water as your growing medium with no nutrition, then some weird things could obviously start to happen. So they had to create an equal playing field, and they did so with Hoagland solution. And so basically what you're covering is both, you're covering your NP, NK, and micronutrients, as a matter of fact, and you're also including, because you're growing in water, you're also including calcium and magnesium. I don't know if they used DI water, but probably did if they're adding calcium and magnesium as part of their Hoagland solution. So Anyway, that's to account for evenness across all of the plants that were established. Number 2 is what is not accounted for and what makes it difficult in a very small scale hydroponic study like this is what I would have liked to have seen is the this is actually where I would have liked to have seen a tissue test, right? And specifically why I want to see a tissue test in this regard is one of those interesting things that we know about plant response when you induce phosphorus deficiency. And you may not be inducing phosphorus deficiency at such a point that you're growing purple grass out there or you're inhibiting grass. But what has been shown is that as tissue phosphorus levels decline, is that you tend to get an increase in root development in an effort. This is the plant's kind of physiological response in an effort to mine more phosphorus from the soil, right? So it's kind of an odd thing that has been highlighted and demonstrated multiple times, both in lab settings like this and then again in the field. It was not accounted for in this situation. Purely, the only thing I was looking for was we applied this product. What happened after we applied this product? Now, what is not being discussed is why, when we applied this product, did we see this, right? So it's just giving us a very surface level of what actually happened. And then from there, unfortunately, we're kind of left to deduce why that was the case without any real guidance as to what, why, how that could be. And in my opinion, I think this is where, at least at the minimum, for very, very little cost, one more thing like a tissue test could show one more or eliminate one more variable that could be a contributing factor to seeing why we're seeing what we're seeing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I would like to see phosphorus levels and micronutrient levels, because what I know about humic substances is humic substances are able to sequester phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, and micronutrients. They can do it. And so what you said about plants throwing out more roots in an attempt to mine nutrients makes sense to me. And one of the logical ways to disprove that would be, or to prove it or to disprove it, would be get a tissue test done on those plants to see if the increased root growth that they're seeing is not, in fact, a stress response.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to know that, because ever since I knew that humic and organic substances sequester nutrients, that has made me even more wary of applying them.
Now, and I'll say this is that I have done very little in terms of applications of baccarat. What I have done a decent amount with baccarat, though, is see what it plays well with and what it doesn't. And, I talked to you about it being this odd quasi suspension because one, the pH of the product, we all know that humic acid is no longer soluble at low pH. And pH has no effect, at least, from a 4 to a 9 on the baccarat product. But as you start increasing in pH, it kind of gets a little interesting. I would say that it becomes a bit more clingy on your finger, not in like in more of like a traditional humic acid way. You know how if you dip your finger in humic acid, it clings to your finger decently well. And if you've ever dealt with a really, really clean, fine particulate suspension and you dip your finger in it, it doesn't look super clingy to your finger. It's an odd thing that I noticed is that the higher you took the pH on it, the more it looked and acted like a traditional humic acid. If you maintain neutral to acidic pH on it, it tended to remain this beautiful, odd suspension-esque type product that did not cling to anything. And it was interesting, and I don't know why that is. I haven't had an excuse or reason to continue down that wormhole. It's just an observation I've made. So I would think using Hoagland solution here with this, I think the suspension plus the Hoagland solution would, in theoretically play well together, because I didn't notice any coagulation of the sort that you normally would see when you mix something like Hoagland solution with a humic acid. So I don't know, just kind of fodder out there. I'm just throwing around some talking points.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's the whole thing, is that, you know, part of research too in science is to spur on more questions. I don't know how limited or whatever. I'm sure that there were parameters within the protocol, right, that the researchers were supposed to follow, and things like that. So it'd be interesting to see if you know, anybody wants to replicate this research, that they take those next steps like you talked about, and we'll see. But you know what? This is just another example of where science is making us learn and get a little bit better, Joe.
Yes, indeed it is, because these types of questions are the questions that need to be asked, and that's the whole reason that research is conducted, to be able to compile the next set of questions to continue the scientific quest that we are all on. And the idea that we should just disregard that and give up and get angry and throw and point fingers is, well, you know, it fucking pisses me off sometimes. Anyway, boys, let's check out this week's Burns.
Now, we didn't meet over the holidays, and oh yeah, that whole part. I'll kind of tie a bow on that at the end of the show there. But Ray, Matt and I need to know: did you give? You know, we didn't get to talk over the holidays. Did you give Sheila the whole tenderloin for Christmas dinner?
Girl got the whole leg.
Oh yeah. Ray says, hold my kickstand.
That was a hell of an egg there. It was bounced right off the table somehow. City council, I'm not even going to be able to read this. City council proposes changes to lawn ordinance No May rules.
Oh boy.
Here we go. This is
here we go.
Here's some. I think this is what happens when you say, you know what, forget the science. Let's just do whatever makes us feel good. Standard lawns aren't the only yards in style. An increasing number of St. Peter residents are taking out their turf and replacing with native grasses and plants to create a more hospitable environment for pollinators. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Statewide programs like Lawns to Legumes have encouraged Minnesotans to counteract the decline of native butterflies and bee species by building pollinator-friendly gardens and yards. As the image of a healthy lawn is shifting, so are city regulations for lawn care. On Tuesday, St. Peter City Council met in a work session to reevaluate the current ordinance on residential grass and weeds. Much of the discussion was centered around how to create an ordinance that's both permissive enough to encourage and allow residents to cultivate environmentally friendly lawns, and restrictive enough to prevent homeowners from letting their lawns grow out of control. Under the current ordinance, it is unlawful for weeds or grass in residential areas to grow above 6 inches or go to seed. But when it comes to creating a healthy lawn, neighbors aren't always on the same page. One man's flowers, another man's weed. One of the suggested changes to the ordinance is to explicitly designate cultivated native plants as separate from weeds. This would serve to legally differentiate planned pollinator-friendly gardens from native plant overgrowth in neglected lawns. Councillor Emily Bruflat said such a distinction would be helpful in settling neighborhood disputes and resolving complaints before they're taken to the city. It's nice to have an ordinance to point to or have a rule to say that this is cultivated, so it's okay. Mayor Shannon Noel further suggested the city specify noxious weeds in its ordinance to reference plant species prohibited, restricted, and regulated by the state. I like being more specific in referencing noxious weeds, because what I see as a weed might not be what he sees as a weed. So on and so forth. So we're moving on. No May is going to become a thing, and we're here, and we're proud, and there we go.
Now listen, this is a great thing, and I learned a lot more about this over the holiday break. there's actually a research proposal that's out there that's going to go in for some potential grant funding, and I'll read from this one pager that I received, and I think you'll be interested here. So the title of this is Harnessing an Emerging Market for the U.S. Lawn and Landscape Industries. So they're looking at this from the standpoint of, is there a gap to be filled by professionals doing these practices under the auspices of best management practices, or is some of this stuff BS? So there's a growing concern among society that traditional turfgrass lawns are negative environmental assets responsible for losses of biodiversity and wildlife habitat, exposure to pesticides, decreasing water quality and availability, and greenhouse gas production. These concerns have led to an increased demand for alternative and seemingly environmentally friendly strategies for managing lawns. To date, this demand has produced a dizzying array of management recommendations and trendy marketing campaigns largely driven by local grassroots efforts and environmental groups. For example, No Mow May, Raise the Blade, Leave the Leaves, Safe Home for the Gnome, lake-friendly lawns, lawns to wildflowers, freedom lawns, etc. These campaigns have largely been advertised to benefit invertebrates that provide important ecosystem services such as pollination, biological control, nutrient cycling, and act as food for wildlife. Such recommendations have captured the interest of homeowners across the United States on all social media platforms, and some practices have recently been adopted by entire municipalities. Despite their traction, few, if any, of these practices have been evaluated by turfgrass scientists or urban ecologists to determine their realized environmental and economic cost and benefits. Moreover, many of these campaigns villainize or at odds with the sod production, lawn care, and pest control industries. While professional turfgrass managers are aware of homeowners' changing perspectives on lawns and even seeing it with their clientele, they have been largely excluded from the process of creating effective and realistic alternative lawn care campaigns and programs. Ironically, if the lawn care and pest control industries were included in these campaigns, it would be much more likely to achieve their desired environmental goals. This has generated a large disconnect and even animosity between the newly emerging goals and expectations of lawn owners and the practices and resultant cost of cultural, environmental, and social and economic facets that they are willing to accept to reach them. So this is their pitch, and they want to research and look at, hey, in a vacuum, right? What's going on with all these practices? Is this just something that somebody came up with? Like, for example, the No Mow May thing, actually, I learned this in this process, came up and was adopted in Wisconsin, right? And now it's proliferated, and I can't remember the map that they showed during their presentation, but, you know, it's in like 16 other states or something like that now. So, again, May in Wisconsin, yeah, you can probably get away with it. May in Ohio or Pennsylvania or Iowa, maybe not, right? And what's left to deal with on the backside of that in terms of
Tennessee,
you haven't mowed your grass. Oh, yeah, you haven't mowed your grass in a month, and are you actually creating worse downstream effects by doing that? So I think my take on this whole thing is that that there is no science to support a lot of these things. Now, it's well-meaning, and I think that the point, the most important point of this research proposal that I think is cool is that bring the people that do this every day, bring the professionals in, and let us be part of the solution rather than just ostracizing us and saying, well, you know, all you guys want to do is just put down fertilizer and charge me money. And it's not that. You know, there are those folks. I mean, listen, we all visit the Advanced Professional Applicators Facebook group and see some of the bullshit that goes on there. But, you know, the challenge here, right, is I think the people that are sensible in this industry need to be in the middle of this as sort of the ringleaders. And it's going to be telling the homeowners and the people that are concerned, right, hey, listen, we've got this and we're going to use science to back what we do. And on the flip side, you got all the swinging dicks in the lawn care industry that you got to say the same thing to, right? Hey, we're going to use science to pull you along and get you going in a better direction. I see that more and more. There's a whole bunch of stuff we can talk about with those groups and what I see right now in them, and I'm sure we can all see. That's a subject for another show. We will definitely dive into that. But my question to you, gentlemen, is how do we become part of the solution in this? I see this, hopefully this grant gets funded and we can, you know, start down this path of research and whatnot. But short of that, how do we become part of the solution and not be part of the No Mow May marketing campaign that maybe doesn't make any sense for what we're doing and could become more problematic than it's worth.
I think there is an issue, and boy, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I'm literally looking in the mirror as I say this out loud. There is a propensity to let emotions charge the conversations that are had regarding these types of sensitive topics, right? Which can become sensitive topics. Again, I'll be the first to admit, I get really excited over something that is relatively meaningless to many people. Why I do, I don't know, because I've got my own fucking mental health problems that I have to deal with. But and hang on, there's more to where I'm going with this. And the first thing I want to say is that I think everybody can come to in terms of lining up some commonality here is if someone wants to have a lawn full of natives, by all means, do the damn thing. And as a professional, be able to provide the assistance on how to accomplish that. Plants that are best going to fit their growing conditions, whether they be with shade, full sun exposure, side of the house, wet areas, boggy areas, because there's native plants that are going to thrive in all of these different conditions, right? One of my favorite plants to plant in some of the most horrific underwater-like growing conditions ever would be your old carrot species, the old green and golds. Native plant, and they did absolutely wonderfully through periods of extreme hard ass, dried up lake bed type cracked ass dirt, soil bed,
cracked ass dirt.
Yeah, just horrific looking, and you're walking across it, like, man, what am I even walking on? And then, for 4 months out of the year, well, longer than that, I would say, from November through April, it's basically underwater the entire time, right? And it just continues to show up, and it continues to thicken, and it continues to do really well. And so, that type of plant and that type of environment is actually serving a pretty significant purpose there and being able to offer some of the wonderful filtration effects that we get from grasses, right? And also, you get to scratch your itch if you want to have, a lawn full of natives, and if it makes you feel good about contributing to biodiversity, whether or not how significant of a contribution to biodiversity you're actually providing there is debatable, to say the least. But as a professional, that's something that you can come in with your expertise on both sides of the aisle and offer an option that is going to appease the person, both from an emotional standpoint, meaning, feel good, to from a practical standpoint, something that is going to tolerate of the worst conditions possible that is not even conducive to growing turf grass. And 3, you get to be the good guy in the situation, right? So it's a win-win-win on all sides of the aisle there. Then on the flip side of this is that I think it's easy. The easy way out, the easy cop out, is to walk into that situation and be like, "You're a fucking idiot for wanting to do that." And I say this about the debatability of biodiversity is that what we're seeing in ag right now is a significant amount of research funded towards this cover cropping, no-till, and the various efforts of cover cropping, like increasing significantly the number of species that go in with cover cropping, and then measuring the proliferation of biodiversity, whether that's just from microorganisms all the way up to wildlife measurements, right? And what we're seeing is that it's actually not really having that much of a impact, even
right,
the 2, 3, 4 year mark, right? So now that's not it's not an urban home lawn setting. So I'm just saying is that it's debatable at this point, because we just don't have the body of evidence to point to and say, without a doubt, this is what you can expect. And there's regional variabilities, there's climate variabilities, there's soil condition variabilities that all need to be accounted for, right? And we're just not there yet. But these are things that hopefully will continue to show up, and so we can be able to make the best educated decision as possible. So anyway, I've said enough. I think I've painted my picture there. Ray, what about you? What can we do? Yes, Ryan's question. Sorry,
Matt, Ryan. I've always been an advocate for putting turf grass in the right places, and in places where turf grass is not a good fit because
like 45-degree slopes
of that. Yeah, exactly. I was going there. Okay, in places where turf grass requires too many inputs or is not practically maintainable, by all means, I mean, I encourage my clientele to take a look at areas where turf grass is not able to be maintained at a high level with a minimum amount of inputs. I tell them, you look at that area and let's rethink. How would you feel about foliage plants that will thrive in that area? How do you feel about that? Because, okay, I love grass, but there's nuance to how I love grass. I only love grass in situations where it is possible to maintain that grass at a very high level. Otherwise, I start to think, hey, let's redesign this and make this area actually more attractive than grass that is being maintained half-ass. I mean, that's just how I go with it. And I see around a lot of homes all throughout the US and in Hawaii, places where grass has no earthly fucking business being. Okay? Grass doesn't belong there. I mean, and those are the kind of places where I'd rather see that kind of area planted to alternative plant materials that are well suited to that area rather than having grass on it. I mean, it's because to me, a thriving hillside garden or thriving foliage garden in the shade looks a heck of a lot better than grass that looks terrible, because grass that looks terrible, to me, that's like the opposite of a calling card for me. That's more like, don't hire this guy because your grass looks like that. You know, so I think that as an industry, hey, I've even had some pretty pointed conversations with landscape and sod people in that the contents of my conversation. I mean, you want to talk about bedside manner? They begin with, why the fuck did you put grass over there? You shouldn't have.
I think we have all heard Ray make the recommendation of going and getting the D9 Caterpillar and just fixing the problem one for all. And that oftentimes means that there is something about that situation where grass is no longer conducive to grow. And so you're going to have to make a major landscape modification in order to make it conducive for the growth of grass. Yeah. When you're calling in a D9 Caterpillar for 3,000 square foot areas, you know this is an earth-moving adventure.
It just sounds like that sounds like a new business venture for Ray. Is Major Landscape Modifications LLC.
Speaking of major modifications here, a Madison County jury has awarded a towboat deckhand $3.3 million $3.3 million. Freudian. The D in the hand. A jury deliberated 2 hours and 15 minutes before declining SCF Lewis and Clark LLC's request to award deckhand Kevin Mogensen nothing, and instead issued a verdict of $3.3 million. Let's see what is going on here. The lawsuit, brought under the Federal Jones Act that covers seamen, you did this on purpose, DeMay. I know you did. Alleged the towboat company negligently ordered Morganson to be aboard a barge while terminal and dock crews were cleaning excess bright yellow corn gluten fertilizer off of it. Towboat employees testified they believed that constituted an unsafe working condition. There was testimony that Mogenson's exposure was so significant that he resembled a computer-animated minion in color. According to testimony, 20 hours following the exposure, Mogensen was taken by ambulance to Alton Memorial Hospital, where he was diagnosed with acute hypoxic respiratory failure. He was intubated and placed on a ventilator. After being discharged from the hospital 4 days after being admitted, his treatment has consisted of nebulizer treatments as well as using daily inhalers. His lawyers argued that he suffered acute aggravation of his pre-existing asthma and that his condition is now permanent. Mogensen's asthma has been present since his childhood, and that any problems experienced in the alleged workplace incident was due to exposure of corn gluten fertilizer 6 weeks before, when he was working for a different employer. Anyway, he got 60 grand back, and then $2.75 million for past and future pain and suffering, and $500K for past and future loss of normal life. Just a real quick takeaway here is I was expecting that a significant amount of really hygroscopic, high salt index fertilizer got on him and burned his skin, right? So I'm thinking like a barge full of ammonium sulfate, significant amount of exposure, maybe even like wet ferrous sulfate heptahydrate, like a wet hygroscopic ferrous sulfate can be not very fun to get on your skin at all. What is interesting here is that, boys, this was organic. And we all know is that we don't have to worry about shit with organic fertilizer, except for, acute hypoxic respiratory failure, where you have to be fucking intubated and placed on a ventilator.
And then listen, a few things about this. Go ahead. Well, go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's what I know. Corn gluten. That can be a known allergen and sensitizer. So you give me a person with a prior history of anything autoimmune, including asthma, and then you expose that person to a high concentration of corn gluten. I say roll the dice 50-50. Someone can have a rather significant, severe allergic reaction to it.
Now,
I mean, that's what I think happened.
I put this in here for 3 reasons, and the third reason just occurred to me. But number one is, what a terrible way to potentially die or require being on a fucking ventilator than to be around this. 4, because the second one was what you just said, Matt. This was organic fertilizer, right? This corn gluten meal, 10-0-0, right? It is used as a fertilizer. It's used as a pre-emergent, right? In areas that you can't use a labeled or registered pre-emergent. The third thing is, let's be honest, the loss of a normal life, 500K. Listen, carrying around a nebulizer with you is, an existence for some people. It's terrible. And for this guy, who's a fairly young man, I mean, the only way that you're going to climb in the sack with anybody is if you have a chick that has a Darth Vader fetish, right? Last, and this is the most important reason I put it in here, is I didn't get to have a 6th grade health class with Matt Martin, and I needed to hear him say semen in a very serious way. So thank you, Matt.
Look, I'm looking at an SDS here for corn gluten fertilizer, and checking for the fun stuff like PPE, respiratory ranges. Do they recommend any kind of wearing of masks? And I'm not seeing anything unless conditions where airborne concentrations are expected to exceed exposure limits. Exposure limits in this are dusts of 15 milligrams per cubic meter, according to the OSHA Z1 test, or a respirable amount of dust of 5 milligrams per cubic meter, which is when you are outside, that is a fairly significant amount. And it says, if you are going to be in an area like, right there where you have the potential to turn yellow, An N95 or R or P particulate filter may be used where you're expected to exceed that. But it is not saying anything, like you have to do this, you have to wear that, you have to do this. Because you know why? Well, it's organic. And man, scary that is. Scary indeed. Speaking of scary, let's talk about this week's returns. La 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 la.
I'm back.
And here it is. Dandy's new weed-killing lawn robot will save your back. Sorry to all you weed smokers out there. There's a robot for that. Oh.
What?
Yeah, no, wrong weed. Wrong weed. The new Dandy DT01 and the 01XL are robots designed for residential customers with up to 1 acre of coverage area, especially those looking to limit herbicide use. This robot automatically solves 2 of my top gardening problems, removing weeds and reducing the amount of harmful chemicals used at home. They have to throw that in there, don't they? They use a visual processing technology to distinguish up to 95% of common broadleaf weeds from grass blades and sprays them directly using a small dose of herbicide, like spot treatment. Dandy claims this method reduces the need of the use of weed-killing chemicals by up to 90% when compared to spraying an entire lawn. With durable bumpers on the perimeter, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, good job, guys. Cool stuff here. It's an automated spot sprayer. I'm not gonna lie, I think it's pretty cool, and I'll be curious to see how this works once implemented into the real world. I will say this is that I'm not the kind of person that wants to be the first one out and just give it a whole whirl, and that's mainly just because I don't feel like spending $800 on one. But I know that we have people like our resident rocket scientist who would absolutely love to do this, and I'd like to hear his feedback.
Oh boy, yeah, he'd spend $800 on this in a heartbeat. He's going to need it. He's his time is going to be limited here this year. So,
yes.
Sean, get on it.
Yes. We also have Kenneth Benoit Jr., not to be confused with Chris Benoit, who he fucked up real bad and is going to go down in infamy, rightfully so, as one of the biggest pieces of shit to walk our earth. This ain't that guy.
Yeah.
You know who this guy is? A fucking badass. Kenneth Benoit Jr. earns Excellence in Government Affairs Award from the GCSAA. Kenneth is a 28-year GCSAA member and past president of the Metropolitan GCSA, has earned the 2023 Excellence in Government Affairs Award from the Golf Course Superintendents Association of America. He's being honored for his efforts in establishing the best management practices for New York State golf courses, educating those outside the industry on BMPs, and developing a strong working relationship with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Not an easy thing to fucking do, this guy did. The award honors the cumulative efforts of Benoit's proactive approach to establishing BMPs at New York State golf courses, as well as his dedication to developing a positive and productive working relationship with the NYSDEC. The New York State Agency Task for Regulating blah, blah, blah. Like most regions around the country, we have a very politically charged relationship with environmental groups and lawmakers, Benoit said. Fortunately, we have a very politically active core of superintendents in the Northeast who help communicate the great things our industry is doing for the environment. It goes on to say here that, where he got started, has worked his way through. And then he says, I would ask all superintendents from around the country to do their small part by participating in the GCSAA BMP online tool. Formally adopting BMPs at your facility will go a long way towards helping our industry communicate to outsiders all the great things we're doing to help create an environmentally and a healthy and sustainable world. And he goes on to say he is truly honored and grateful to have been chosen for this award. And you know what? He is deserving. And you know why? Is because he fucking got out in front of it. He did the hard work. He did everything that he was supposed to do above and beyond, and is a prime example of what we all should be able to do if we apply the same kind of tactfulness and effort that Mr. Benoit does here. He just did it better and quicker than the rest of us did. Be like Mr. Benoit.
Absolutely. BMPs are here to stay. It's coming to lawn care. It's already in sports turf. It's already in golf. And if you're not following them, well, there's no fucking excuse. So get on the science train, ladies and gentlemen. Toot toot, about to leave the station. Don't like it? Tough titties.
We are leaving the station, but you know who isn't leaving the station, and that's our link. Our link is wecarelawncare.info. If you have a couple extra bucks, throw it in. We got news. We had some corporate backers for donations that were made. And just so you know that this went to good use, over $11,000 now between this and then corporate sponsors that got in as a result of people throwing their money in here, has all gone towards this fund right here. This does not go to us. We never touches our hand. This goes directly to St. Jude. Use YouTube for good. For anybody that's out there that watches YouTube that is non-lawn care related content, by all means, please have them do the same thing. The wecarelawncare.info link. Share it. Use the hashtag WeCareLawnCare. Get people who are not in the industry into the industry, or at least highlight the fact that they too can use their platform, their audience, their community to do the same good thing that Travis Feltner inspired us to do. So again, thank you, Travis. And we appreciate everything that came about it, because we get to do something for people who actually need the fucking help. And it's the people who get to experience all the various things that you get to experience at St. Jude, but most importantly, you get the care that you so desperately need and deserve. We love you all. We're going to go hang out with the patrons and let them pick this week's episode title. Fuck off! Why did I say that?
I don't know.
I just felt good.